Hello guys, you know what I want to tell you? Guys, I conduct my trading session when I have time for it. Of course, I would like to record videos every time, around 8 or 9 in the evening when things have calmed down a bit, but it doesn't always happen that way. Now I have some free time and I want to record a video and also make some money. So I'll make a combo 2 in 1 and you might see something new for yourself and I'll earn or maybe lose. How it will go, I don't know. I'm looking at this big candle that appeared out of nowhere and it's already scary from this market. But we'll see. Fortunately, our OTC looks much better now than the real chart. Maybe I'll switch to OTC, depending on the situation. Now I'll be looking for situations. What situations do I use? The standard immediate pullback from the area. Good, excellent, cool. But if it doesn't happen, and I need to work on something, where can I enter? I can enter for an increase before the area. And the third option, what else can I do? I can take a specific piece and see what's happening in the candle and capture some small movement. That is, read the next candle where it might presumably go. So these are the 3 options present in my little portfolio. Yes, I always carry them with me in my portfolio just in case they come in handy. So now I'm looking for a situation. I'll start as usual from the bottom up and then go back. Yes, by the way, guys, before I forget, I remember you wanted to hear from me some kind of, video on the topic of just chatting without chart. For example, I can take my phone or a GoPro with me, go throw some discs, and have a chat. So write in the comments what topic could be covered if I, for example, take a GoPro, put it on my head, and go to throw discs in the forest. Well, disc golf, and maybe I'll be talking about something while doing it. So I need that something, an example of what you would like to hear from me. Maybe several topics. Is anyone interested in hearing something from me? Write in the comments. I will definitely take a look. Now I'm off to find a situation. Yes, by the way, when I enter, I initially click through situations for pullback movements or approaches. Let's strictly, once and for all, I'll explain now. Guys, the approach to the area is worked out when you have strong movements. What are strong movements? Here, for example, is a strong movement. Let's take 5 to 7 candles, and these candles should not lose strength as they approach. They should also be large with minimal pullbacks. When I don't work out the approach to the area, it's when you have weak approaches like these. This kind of approach is top. When there is really a strong spill down or a strong movement up, then you can confidently say that these guys have the desire and strength to go and update some area. The second option is not to go against such strong movements, like these movements, and enter on pullback movements only when the strength of this very movement is lost. Alright, I've been talking too much. I'll go look for a situation. This is how it always turns out here. I already understand that the reaction was from this stop. This stop was not passed. There is a downward trend here. The next stop will be lower. I do not observe confirmation from the market profile of further downward movement. That is, liquidity is at the top. This is bad for the trend. The profile doesn't reveal it. Liquidity is below. That is, one can imagine that there is nothing for the price to do at the bottom, but going up for the accumulated liquidity at the top would be a good move. And now what do I see? I see that the minimum was made and that we should have gone to update this minimum here. But the buyer went higher, not allowing the seller to go down in this situation. This already indicates that at the moment, the priority is not in favor of this trend. But to be sure of this, we need to see an update of the nearest maximum and consolidation above it. That's when I'll say, that's it, a reversal. Currently, the buyer is prevailing. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful. For now, this may only indicate that there could be sideways movement and the trend movement is still generally prioritized. So let's figure it out. The buyer doesn't let the seller in, producing such a lousy candle. Fewer sellers, fewer buyers. Where is this buyer who didn't let the seller update their lows here and somehow didn't even reach the area, right? So for now, the seller is producing a candle again. Again, this could be a sideways movement or it could be another attempt to update this low. So what can I do here? I can take the nearest low and the main low. So I can assume movement towards here. If I consider a sideways movement, then again, my sideways movement will occur. From this low, I chip more or less at this would stop where the buyer might pick up the movement again. So if I want to enter on the strong side, I would like to enter on the strong side before this stop. Let's see. If I can use an entry for a downward move. In this candle, there are as many sellers as in the previous one. And I immediately have questions for the seller. Why was there so much selling in the green candle and now about the same in the red candle? There should be much more. Why is there a buyer present in the red candle? Not so little, I would say. Therefore, for safety, I don't see a continuation of the downward movement here right now. I don't have enough facts. I will go look for another situation. This moment with GBP AUD, there is GBP AUD, GBP AUD. There was an opportunity to work it out here. 2 minutes, 500 for an upward move, So the amount for the follow-up according to the standard, and I'll explain why the entry for an upward move is happening now. What immediately catches my eye. What catches my eye specifically is this buyback, which happened very strongly around 70%. It didn't just happen, it happened from this stop where the seller should be picking up in the movement according to the trend. But what do we see? The candle closes in this place, again an attempt by the seller to go down, but in the end the seller is not allowed to go down. Buyers buy back this movement, take the candle in their favor, and as a bonus they produce a good full-bodied one. That is, a strong seller did not appear in this place. The buyer has created competition for him. Now it's moving on a good full-bodied candle with practically 5 minutes left until it closes. The volume has already equaled the previous one for the buyer. This is no longer a loss of strength, right? The seller is also not increasing for now. And in the cluster, we have a zone of interest pushing up with additional support from the volume below. Well, the support from below is already a little less. A ton of facts regarding these indicators, yes, suggest that the movement will continue. Specifically, there will most likely be an attempt to break through these highs. But I'm taking 2 minutes. I'm taking 2 minutes because from this price, there was a sharp movement downwards. That is, theoretically, it might still pull back from here. 2 minutes are taken purely to catch the movement up to this previous high. Wow, how it spins in place. Unbelievable. Logically speaking, look, the main thing now is not to miss the opening of the catch-up if it doesn't give it to me, as we basically haven't moved from the spot in 2 minutes. So 3 seconds, I want to use a small catch-up here. Secondly, we had a standard trend that made this low. Everything was fine. We were following the trend, updating lows, but something went wrong. The buyer issued a correction after creating the low. Then the seller's attempt in this situation to go for a new low again, a buyer appeared. And just look how much time has passed. These are 15-minute candles, right? We are moving upward. So we are already comparing with the previous highs of this trend where the seller does not appear. And we continue further, right? So why does this happen? Currently, the buyer is prevailing at the moment. For a breakdown to occur, we must accordingly consolidate over all this. And the next nearest stop where a seller might appear is right here. We had a small accumulation here. We were not allowed to move upwards from here. Sellers injected some volume and we went lower. And from this point, we also had a buyback, which showed that the seller in this area is not that strong. And we are going back here again, testing it again and trying to break through. So logically, the movement upwards can also basically happen. Well, it seems like I've covered everything regarding the analysis and the entry point. Now, we just have to wait. So 2 seconds remain until the end. Well, I wouldn't say that this is a serious movement, but nevertheless, 13 point. Again, if I expand, yes, the chart might, make it a bit larger. Then this movement will already look more serious. I just like to keep it further away, minimally. You get? Okay, not a single point. On the man. The movement upwards is still somewhat happen. It is most likely going to generally try to go even higher. Since basically we have more buyers. It's in the zone has dropped by 1 point, but it has very strong support. But the buyers, that is the upward movement, may still continue here. Again, I can once more work it out for an increase, but I've said everything. I've worked it out. And what is your interest in watching another plus from me? I think none. You need more information from completely different analyses. I'm looking for the next situation. Look here. Euro GBP, similar to the previous one. There was an attempt by the buyer to do something. They bought up the movement, but they are not going higher. They are going down. You understand? But there's nothing to hold on to here. Really, well, there's nothing here. This impulse was strong upwards, just so you understand. These are 15-minute candles. Historical mirror levels, good, 14 minutes until the end of the candle. The nearest place where a buy up might appear, I can assume, is this minimum because there was a buy up from here. The buy up was large. Can I take the entry purely by analyzing the candles with indicators up to this minimum? Let's see. So far, there's a very weak amount of ticks from the seller, 5 ticks 20. It looks very weak somehow. In terms of volume, nothing is clear yet, but you can see a little more from the seller. But there's a dilemma here that here both the buyer is dropping in each candle and the seller is dropping in each candle. But I have nothing to rely on right now, so this trade is not for execution. Look, here's an example of a cluster. Here you have a candle with a small pullback movement from below. In this candle, the overall volume increases. Not more for sellers, less for buyers. A downward movement, where to this minimum. And you look at the cluster, and here the buyer is exposed. It happens to you immediately. You automatically cannot enter for the continuation of the movement right away because below a buyer appears, a buyer who is capable of making a pullback movement. Bzzz. Urgently, a video with a hamster here. So, well, look, I've basically clicked through the entire 15-minute chart. I can't find a single situation here right now. I'll switch to the hourly time frame to look for an entry point. An entry on the hourly chart. Now, if suddenly there's something, I might work it out on the hourly chart. There's an interesting nuance. On CAD CHF overall, CAD CHF. Let's take CAD CHF 4 minutes. Entry for a decrease. I'll also take a look at this spot. There was one candle made. The volumes were small, insignificant. It's unlikely that this interests them. They are most likely interested in this moment. This one right here. Because I don't see higher volumes according to the profile. That is, again, all the liquidity is concentrated in the center. And it makes sense to revolve around it. That is, in general, I can understand that the movement, especially this one, was something unknown. It also impulsed. And it makes sense to cover this as well. So overall, both from the profile and from this, I see movement downward. The nearest place where a buyer might appear, it's hard to say here. Because I can't consider this place as a stop since there was only one candle from here, and this place as a stop since there was also only one candle from here. So it's not really a place to bounce off again. This is a movement downward, it seems to me. Since I use the hourly chart, I mostly use it now for logic. Logically, in my opinion, they should come down at least to the market profile. There. And somewhere beyond this liquidity here. All right. Okay. According to the general logic, we should go lower. But what do we see? We see that initially this high was made. So we have the nearest stop. We make this high, then go down. Buyers don't let it go down further with this movement. We go up again, update the previous high, and enter accumulation. And if the buyer is strong in this movement, the accumulation should have broken in their favor. But the accumulation breaks in favor of the seller, not the buyer. So this already tells you that the movement to this stop is unlikely to happen immediately. Then we get one good candle downwards with volume increasing on the seller. The next candle, the volume starts to increase even more on the seller. We have this point X on the map where it makes sense for the seller to go. They are heading towards these two stops from where there was one candle each. Also, the candle is held full bodied at the moment of my opening. And now the volume has changed a little. But here, I think there was a point and there was a lot of volume here, right? So at the moment of opening, though, there was volume for further movement downwards. And yet, since this is an hourly chart, I'm not considering these nearest stops right now, as they will simply not be of interest to them. If any pullback movement occurs from here, it won't be very noticeable on the hourly chart. And the nearest point that might be of interest and where something significant might appear is right here, the profile stick. That's the logic I have for entering right now. There are 45 seconds left here, so we wait a little. Okay, 3 seconds to go. That's a plus. Come here. Here it is. Showed everything, demonstrated everything. Yes, I understand that many are just in shock right now. How come you didn't find an entry point on the 5-minute chart? You went to the 15-minute chart, found an entry point there, but then everything ended on the 15-minute chart. You went and found an entry point on the hourly chart. Yes, guys, that's exactly how it works. You won't believe it, but on every time frame, people really love to say that if the price is moving in one direction on one time frame, it will do the same on another. No, the difference between large time frames and small ones is significant. If on the 4-hour or daily chart you have an uptrend, you need to pay attention. In this trend, a standard correction might be happening right now. And this means that when you switch to weaker time frames, smaller ones like 5, 15 minutes or hourly, it will be moving down against this overall uptrend. Do you understand? Overall, I caught a plus. I'm looking for situations on the hourly chart further if there are any. So in this situation, we are similar. We will encounter this volume on the way. And this is not just any volume, but this volume also supports this stop from where there was previously a very good upward movement. So there might be a buyer here. We have this distance to this area. The question is, will the seller have enough strength to reach it? A good full-bodied one. There are already more buyers as we approach the area. This is good, but not good for the reds. The number of reds is not decreasing, so there is strength to go. The cluster of the area of interest above is bad for further downward movement. At the moment where the price is, we have 325. I don't see any support from above. It is located a little higher right away. There is also a loss of strength from below. I don't see an influx of volume for further downward movement, so it might be that they won't even reach it. And look, there are 2 minutes left until the hourly candle closes. There is another volume here, but the most appealing one is a bit lower. Let's look at the situation on a larger scale. On a larger scale, it makes sense to go up. And what will these lows tell us like this? Let's see. So there is another interesting volume and they are more or less the same. But we were here, then we were at this place a very long time ago. To be precise, Montan, on February 20th. So going down in general, the price is present as liquidity is also accumulated below. These are my thoughts. I would really like to see a zone of interest lower by the candle's close or some volume support from sellers and take an entry up to this area. The area is rising a little, like this. Let's wait closer to the close for this full-bodied one. The volume for buyers has interestingly increased now. Maybe something will change in the last minute before the close, and then I'll make a conclusion. For now, we wait a little. So the candle closes, the money button lights up, we close on the seller, and the buyer below hasn't gone anywhere. That is, an entry for a decrease could be used after a pullback movement with divergence in your favor. There, I can't enter immediately, so this situation isn't for me. GBP AUD is a good next option. GBP AUD on the hourly chart is at 83%, medium 4 minutes, 500 for an increase. I'm preparing the amount for a follow-up here. I'll explain right away why for an increase. So, first and foremost, the overall trend was downward everything was smooth, but for some reason, the correction is now transitioning into an upward movement. And what is it doing? It is comparing itself to the previous high of this trend, where the sellers should step in and show themselves if they intend to continue this trend. But we see this passage, we see the removal of this high. Still, no seller appears except for this damn pullback. There was an attempt by the seller to go down, but buyers are now buying up this candle. This is very strange for such a downward trend. Further in this candle, look, we are closing firstly on the block where the buyer prevails. There is support above, and below is an area of interest with support at 885. X2 is greater than the support Pabishan present at the moment of closing. That is, movement above is permissible. In terms of volume, our volume is generally increasing. Buyers are becoming more than in the previous candle. This is a good sign. But the seller is also becoming slightly more in this candle. But the question is, where are you, seller? That is, for the seller, we currently just have this increased volume. Well, it should indeed be increasing. It should somehow show itself according to this trend. In my opinion, some upward movement may still continue. In principle, this can already be considered a consolidation, but a consolidation with this particular candle. If the buyer shows a good candle, then yes, this is further upward movement. A retest of this area may also occur. Another scenario. The seller might still take the candle in their favor, buy it back, and go down again according to the trend. Since we don't have a consolidation yet, it's hard to say overall what will happen. Right now, I'm mostly talking about indicators suggesting that some upward movement can, in principle, continue. Let's see what comes of it. There is a small divergence here, so some downward movement can still occur due to the divergence. But ultimately, in my opinion, it should go higher. We have 1 minute and 35 seconds left. We are waiting 5 seconds left until the end. This is another plus. Also, I already understand that. It's enough for me. You can't always earn, and there's no need to be greedy. Therefore, I am reducing the amount. This is what my trading session looks like. Well, ensure it's quite good for such a time. I am reducing the amount, and for you, I will go find another situation. I think I'll leave the hourly chart. Hit something around 5 minutes now, and as I like, finish with 3 follow-ups. The amount is reduced so that if I suddenly need 2 or 3 follow-ups, my loss doesn't wipe out all my profit for the session. Yes, it might cover some part there. But guys, it's better than losing all the profit or even more. So now I'm looking for a 5-minute situation. Maybe I'll hit something on UTC. We'll see. And I'm coming back. Well, what can I say? On the 5-minute chart, the situation overall is, so right here, by the way, there's a loss of strength at the top of the candle. That's not good. Wow, how everything changes. We are approaching from accumulation, by the way, producing a good candle. The maximum point. So in terms of volume, the seller is less than the buyer. By 136, it might equal the previous or even become a little more. I don't see support at the very top for further movement by the cluster. Probably I won't risk entering for an increase here. It's still necessary to wait closer to the candle's closing. For now, I keep watching. So I couldn't find the 5-minute one, so I'm forced to switch back to the 15-minute one. Maybe there will be something there regarding the entry point. Here is AU Ducadum. Basically we're closing. There's a lot of volume at the top. The buyer is less than the seller. Everything is good. After the correction, we should essentially be moving to update this maximum. I don't see any loss of strength from either side. If it shows the opposite side with a candle, that would certainly be nonsense. For what reason did we do this? Wait, there's no point for you to go higher. You took this maximum, the nearest one. This maximum was taken, these two. Didn't even reach it. No. So why are we pulling back down after this candle? We have nothing for the seller. I think this will be a small movement. And AUDCAD, well, here we'll probably have to take 4 minutes for AUDCAD. Well, let's do it for the sake of interest. AUDCAD, 4 minutes, a smaller amount. For an increase here, 250 for the catch-up. Well, the volume fact is for the buyer. The candle, what is for the buyer? The trend is for the buyer. The target was not taken. What for the buyer? The cluster is for the buyer. And if it turns around and goes down from here, well, guys, I did everything I could. It's no longer up to me. It's just the market. So while there's time, we wait. 25 seconds left here until the end. Some time. If I had taken a minute, I would have closed in profit. But if I had taken 2, I would have closed in profit. You can never guess the exact expiration time due to volatility. Well, it closed me at a loss, as I understand. Well, if they even close in profit, it will be a small profit. All right, I need to prepare for opening a follow-up trade, already looking at what will happen next. But give or not give. All right, such a downward movement is still happening. It is happening against absolutely all facts. And now I need to understand, after all, will the buyer do something or not? And what kind of movement is this happening in this candle? So this is how you decided to act, right? A response to this candle from the seller, which comes out of nowhere, is very weak. 10 to 5 minutes of candle formation have passed indeed. And I can already assume that we are either seeing a loss of strength from the buyer now, meaning the struggle is already being given by the seller in this place, not even from a stop. But the question is why? Didn't the buyer go further? And why did they issue all this? Maybe the candle of error will go higher next and surpass this maximum, or at least approach it. this also happens. Now, the volume increased clearly, not just like that. Still, well, it's hard to say anything now, but judging by the fact that constantly there is resistance in this candle, and somehow the seller looks very weak with 20, 14, 10. There is a possibility that the buyers can still turn this candle in their favor in these 8 minutes. There was a lot of ticks. There are very few ticks here. Regarding the seller, I still use a catch-up. In this situation, 250 for an increase. Here, 650 will be sufficient. And for now, we continue to wait. So 4 seconds remain until the end. This is a more confident plus. That's all. Basically, this is how my trading session turned out to be a daily one. We made a little cabbage, recorded the video. In the end, as I expected, the candle was bought back in favor of the buyer. Well, with that, I'll be wrapping up my video. If you found it interesting and useful, leave feedback, give a like, and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell on YouTube. It helps with promotion. Look, they're buying back in the opposite direction. Well, now, let's say goodbye.